Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It, where we explore the intricate landscape of well being in everyday life. I'm RJ.
Well,
Join us as we dive into insightful conversations, share expert perspectives, and personal stories that shed light on the various dimensions of mental wellness. Whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or deeper understanding of the human mind, this podcast is your safe space to engage, learn, and navigate the journey to a happier, healthier self. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button so you do not miss out on any future content. So today we are going to talk about a very important topic. This one um kind of hit the timeline, hit the internet with my man 21 Savage. Um he said that the streets is dead, and then he has started this movement of F the streets. And so for me, being a huge rap fan, I told Khalil, like I messaged him, I'm like, hey, we need to talk about this. Because for me, as I've shared on here before, I have lost two family members to gun violence. And so like I feel a particular way about now, as I was telling Khalil, when your favorite rapper's favorite rapper is getting caught up in a RICO or going to jail for crimes that they were a part of, and then they turn it into a RICO because they're saying it's a criminal enterprise. Um, Now we want to say, hey, the streets ain't, we need to leave the streets alone. But for me, as I was telling Khalil, the problem is not just the streets. There's a much deeper problem. The much deeper problem is the fact that we prioritize the wrong things. And so, especially in today's society, we're prioritizing the wrong things. We want to pour into the wrong things. We, you know, feed into the wrong things, and then we wonder why we get the results that we get. And I'm not confused, because as a provider, we understand cause and effect. We understand that if you do behavior A, you're going to get result B. And so I thought it was important for us to kind of unpack this topic because, again, I applaud him for maturing and growing and saying, hey, we got to leave the streets alone, but it's better late than never. And so for me, I just felt like there's a much deeper conversation to be had than people ain't really for the streets, and people snitching, people ain't telling who's snitching, who's not snitching, all this different stuff. Like I felt like there's a much deeper topic, that we need to unpack here. So what do you think, Khalil?
yeah, and when you came to came with this topic in the beginning of the week, right? We saw all these Instagram posts, Twitter, X, and everybody's commenting on what 21 Savage said. As a provider, right? We know for a fact when people are fed up with things, right? That's when you get change. But in order to get change, right, you have to have buy-in from the community, right?
Absolutely.
In order for a movement to occur, right, you need a whole community, you need a whole culture involved, right? There has to be a culture shift, right? In anything that needs to be changed as a provider, we know that there's got to be some sort of threat that comes in, right? Virginia Satir talks about that, right? To be an agent of change, right? Usually some sort of threat has to come in. People have to start getting locked up, right? People have to start getting killed, right? There's a lot of things that are going to be the catalyst to create change. And I applaud the young man for standing up for what he believes is right. And of course, everybody wants to see a change because we're tired of our young men dying, young women dying, senseless killing, senseless violence, right? We're tired of that, right? But at the same time, I realized, just like everybody else is, I started listening to rap in the early 80s,
Mm-hmm.
83, 84. I was 5 or 6 and I was listening to rap, right? And rap didn't start off this way, right? It was a slow transition. By the time we got to the 90s, it even magnified. And by the time we got to, people, oh, NWA was so crazy, man. NWA, yeah, they were crazy at the time, right? But it didn't transition to where we are. We had to jump 30 years forward. You get what I'm saying? And now it's okay to talk about killing people, spinning the block, murdering people, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
is getting out of hand because we're turning people into serial killers out here, or we're promoting serial killers, right? I'm sorry, we got it wrong, right? Sociopaths, psychopaths, right? These are the things that we as a culture are finding interesting and glamorous, right? It's not glamorous to catch 19 bodies, right? That's not glamorous. That's a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
You're a person who needs to be locked up because you don't value a life, right? So we have to kind of examine where the thought process is, right? For us as a community, as a culture, to keep supporting this, right? And I know it's not just African Americans. There's a lot of cultures that support this. Whites, Asians, Hispanics, right? It's our society supporting this type of rap, right? Because there's more than just black rappers. There's more than just white rappers, right? I know that's what we technically see because of Eminem and a few other people that really made it famous, but there's a lot. There's Hispanic rappers, right? There's Asian rappers, right? And a lot of people's music has turned into this brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a brand because it's selling. Entertainment is always going to sell, but we know who runs the entertainment industry. So this is supply and demand, like RJ said to me today, right? Because people wouldn't purchase it, right? If there wasn't a demand, right? If people didn't want this, right? They wouldn't sell it. They wouldn't put it out there. And so that's
Because
where
there's no money to be made in it.
there's no money to be made. It's all about a dollar, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we're going to touch on it a little later on in the show, but in the entertainment industry, you see people sell their souls often. Often. Everybody knows that, right? That's not something where people, oh, that's just a made up conspiracy theory. No, in order to get money, right? Because, mammon is a spirit. And if you want to go look that up, go look it up, right? And that drive to get money, people will do whatever it takes to get the money, right? But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about some of the morals that we're seeing that are lacking in our culture. And I applaud the young man for speaking up, but it's going to take more than one person. And so, because it's not a host of people standing in here to create the change, right? And it's got to be a buy in. I don't think we're going to see any change anytime soon until the entertainment industry finds something new to jump onto.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that what it starts with is changing your belief system because your beliefs
Hmm.
drive your behaviors.
Yes.
You know, I explain this to my clients all the time. What we believe quietly shapes what we tolerate, what we excuse, as well as what we repeat. And so, as we've seen in today's society, we are not prioritizing the right things. Like for me, you have children that know the lyrics to a song before they know how to read or read and write.
Right.
You have kids that can do a dance, but then don't know their multiplication tables. Like these are like knowing a dance isn't a basic living skill, isn't a basic functioning skill of everyday life that you need as
Right.
an adult. Knowing how to do math, knowing how to read, knowing how to write, those are things that should be being taught first instead of some stupid dance or some rap lyric. And that's where, for
Right.
me, as I said before, we're prioritizing the wrong things. And then, to take it even a step further, as you said, we have gotten to the point to where we have started to normalize and we start to believe that this type of behavior is just okay. Like it's okay to talk about killing people. It's okay to talk about spinning the block on somebody. It's okay to talk about the dope we're selling. But the thing is, that's abnormal. But it's
Right.
become normal in today's
Right.
society. It's abnormal to not be talking about those things. It's abnormal to not be feeding into those things. And I mean, to me, it's gotten to the point to where, like I was telling you about the shooting that happened at the birthday party in Stockton, where you're minding your own business. You as a
Right.
civilian are hosting a children's birthday party, and someone comes in there and starts shooting the place up because they're shooting at someone that had something that was tied to the streets. It had nothing to do with the children there, but it
Right.
had to do with street foolishness. And so for me, my thing is like although I applaud 21 Savage for saying, "Hey, we got to leave the streets alone. The streets is dead. F the streets." But my thing is, like I told you, are we gonna change our name from 21 Savage? We gonna change our name to 21 Gentleman, 21 Doctor, 21 Scholar? We gonna get rid of the tattoo that's in the middle of our forehead?
Right.
Same thing
Well,
with
he's a
Young Thug.
brand. He's a
Uh, but
brand.
but see, this is what I'm
Can't
saying
really.
though, and this
Yeah.
is where excuse me, we can't be inconsistent. Misaligned beliefs often show up as self sabotage or inconsistency, and this is where he is going to show you. Because I don't believe anything someone says, I believe what they do. And so,
Right.
if he is truly dedicated, and all these other rappers, YFN Lucci, Young Thug, and some of these other rappers that said F the streets right along with him, I challenge you, to change up how you rap. I want to, your next album, I want to hear you be Talib Kweli. I want to hear you be Common.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
I
we
don't want
can't,
to jump
we,
to the extreme, right? But I
no,
do
no, no,
want to
no,
see a
no, no,
change.
no, no,
I
no,
stand
no,
on
no, no,
that. I
no,
want to.
no, no,
I
no.
don't
We
think they coming
cannot,
like
we
Talib
cannot,
Blackmar and all that. I don't
we,
think they doing
we
that.
cannot, we cannot say F the streets, but then still talk about street stuff. We
Of
can't do
course.
that. We can't say F the streets but promote the streets. We can't do both. As my man
Right.
Young Boosie said, he said, and his let's go to his quote from his tweet. If
Yeah.
rappers gon' say F the streets, y'all need to stop rapping about them. Stop double dipping, rap about fruits, college courses, and staying out the streets. And
Right.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. If we're gonna say F the streets and the streets is dead, we can't promote the streets anymore. But see, for
Right.
a lot of these rappers who are saying F the streets, Young Thug was sitting in a RICO case. They couldn't prove everything, but they could prove a lot.
Right.
So to me, we can't say F the streets, but then we're promoting a lifestyle that feeds our young children to the streets.
Right.
Because I said this on a previous episode that we shot, the time and energy you don't have for your kids, somebody else will. And the streets got time for our kids. And so when we're out here, your favorite rapper is a Young Thug, a YFN Lucci, a 21 Savage, a Pooh Shiesty, like
Yeah.
where the whole Shiesty mask thing became a thing
Yeah.
because of him. We're,
Right.
we're, we're out here in the summertime with a goddamn going Shiesty mask on, because it became a thing because he made it a thing.
And then expensive brands were making their own baklavas, right?
That's what I'm saying.
And you know, see the Louis one, and you're like, why? What's going on? And it's pink, and it's pink.
Yeah,
What's going
I'm
on?
watching people we live here in Alabama. I'm watching people 100-degree heat walk around
100-degree
with a
heat
shiesty mask
with a
on.
shiesty mask,
That makes
like they
no
was going
sense.
skiing, like they was
Like,
going skiing. Come on
but
now,
we're out here promoting negativity, death,
it's
and
crazy.
then we're wondering why we're having the results that we have. I mean, even like where you and I were talking before we started recording, right? We started talking about like the biggest shows that people, they hard stop whatever they got going on to make it home in order to catch their show. Power,
Right,
you
right.
know,
Criminal, Cra-
Godfather of Harlem, Snowfall,
criminal
BMF.
element. The whole, yeah, the
Like
whole show.
you spend, like when you watch the main core tenet of the show, they
Right,
spend the entirety of the show, living the street life and dodging cops, dodging death, and dodging going to jail the
right.
entire time. Like it just, to me,
The whole drama of the show is
that
about that.
that's the whole core thing of the streets. I mean, the only smart one out of the whole core group, excuse me, was James St. Patrick in Power. Very
Yeah,
first couple
yeah,
episodes, he was more focused on getting out of the streets because he recognized there's no retirement from the streets. He recognized there's no 401k plan. There's no dental. There's no vision. There's no FMLA. There's no maternity leave. There's no stocks. There's no bonds. There's no nothing but death or
no
going to
longevity,
jail.
no longevity.
There's no
Right,
longevity. You don't retire from the streets. You either get replaced,
right,
you go to jail, or you get chased off. That's typically what happens. And so
right,
he wanted to transition from the streets and make legal money, whereas Tasha and Tommy was used to the fast money and they couldn't get on board with that. So that's where their paths started to diverge because they were having difference of convictions at that point.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
for me, as I said before, as a provider, I'm not confused why we're in the state that we're in, especially with these young kids who, like, my thing is like where I was telling you about how everyone was mad. There's a YouTuber, I subscribe to him. His name is Trapler Ross. He does like
Mm-hmm.
rap investigations, rap documentaries, and things like that. He
Yeah,
has long form, he has short form.
yeah,
So he
seen
did
it.
an investigation looking up, like investigating the 19 bodies allegedly that NBA Youngboy, says that he has. So I was watching a clip from the Joe Budden podcast, and they were calling it. Some of the people on there were calling him corny because he was investigating it. But my thing is, how is he corny for investigating it? But we're not. But we don't have the same energy for the young man who's saying he killed 19 people or
Right,
had a hand in 19 people dying.
right, right.
Like that makes no sense. And that's where, for me, I'm sorry. That's where, like for me, I had to kind of start to like once I started to recognize like how people were just throwing their lives away behind, because rap is the only genre of music where the expectations are you are truly living your lyrics.
Right. And you finna die,
You,
right? You ready to
you,
die like Tupac
so
and Biggie,
so
right?
so if you're out here saying you spinning the block on your ops, the expectation, and that's where like with
Lil
there's
Durk and
another
them.
there's another rapper, Takashi 6ix9ine. That's what he was saying.
Mhm.
He was like, so you're saying that you spin the block on your ops. So if you're saying you spin the block on your ops, your man got. So are you gonna get back? That's
Right.
it. That's literally in a song. That's
Right.
literally in a song where he's directing that towards Dirk, because you've been saying this. Are you truly going to stand on what you said and spin the block on your ops? And that's where, as I said before, how does that help move our culture, move our society forward in killing another person? Because vengeance begets vengeance, begets vengeance, begets vengeance. And before you
Mhm.
realize it, everyone's dead.
Right. And the scary thing about this, right, is it's become normalized, right? And that's what we see in our society. We see it on the news, right? We just had the Bondi Beach shootings, right? You see it, it's normalized, right? The mass shootings that we see in schools, right? This is normalized, right? So at this point,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking to myself, right? I don't want to hear no rap lyrics about this. I can just turn on the news, right? And that's going to show me enough death and killing. That's about all I need throughout the day. But what really gets me is what we talked about earlier, right? Uh, when I grew up, and I'm almost 50, and yes, I understand I'm from a different generation. When I grew up, you never talked about how much dope you sold. You never talked about what type of issues you got into with the police, right? You never talked about who you killed or who you were going to kill, right? That was not a part of the society, right? You actually wanted to fly under the radar if that's what you were doing. You get what I'm saying? Like, you knew who the dope dealers were in the neighborhood, but they
Mm-hmm.
weren't promoting it. And if you were caught saying something like that, you might get bodied just for saying something like that, right? Oh,
Yep.
he sells dope, right? Oh, boom, they on you, right? You might not even have time to get the whole sentence out your mouth, right? Somebody will smack you. This is a completely different generation where we've grown accustomed to people telling on what they do on the streets, right? And so it's been an actual contradiction for somebody like me. I don't even understand it. Yes, you could rap about what you used to do, but if you're rapping about what you currently do, it just seems a little, it's like, it's a contradiction. It just doesn't make any sense because if you want to continue rapping, you probably wouldn't want to tell everybody about all the different people you're killing,
Well, I
right?
mean, what's
It
crazy,
makes sense after a while.
what's crazy about that whole thing is the fact that, people then try to say, oh, it's just art. They're just telling a story. Okay. Well, I
Then
mean,
there's these bodies popping up.
then there's bodies popping up. There's crimes that they can tie to the lyrics that coincide, and
Right.
we saw that with there's a New York drill rapper by the name of K Flock. He just got sentenced to I think either 25
Yeah.
or 30 years.
Yeah. Hmm.
So as a young man that's barely old enough to purchase a car by himself,
Yeah. Right.
he now is going to spend roughly the next 20 years in prison because he beat a murder case. He beat a murder case because he's walking by in his Amiri jeans and his designer hoodie on, and he's walking by a barbershop. One of his ops come out the barbershop, walks up on him. One thing led to another. He killed the guy. So that's what initially got him picked up. But then, of
Right.
course, they were able to tie Rico to him based off of his rap lyrics. And
Hmm.
then of course, people were telling. So, I mean, to me, at the end of the day, like we gotta move better because I mean, to me, as civilians, right? People who ain't out here in the streets, I don't have to work.
Nor do we want to be on the
Yeah,
streets.
nor do I want to be in the streets. Because listen, because I ain't got time.
Mm-mm.
I don't have to worry about drive-bys. I don't got to worry about getting caught up in no Ricos. I don't got to worry about my name being attached to foolishness because I don't put that certain stuff out there. Like I had
Right.
this conversation with my homeboy a few years back when King Von got killed in Atlanta. Excuse me. And like I told him, I've listened to quite a few of King Von's songs. And like I told him then, words have power. The same way we can speak life over ourselves by saying, positive affirmations like I can, I will, I must. You can
Hmm.
also speak death over yourself too. And
Yeah.
so when I'm listening to songs like Take Her to the O or Pressin' with Zada Baby, and you're talking about gunning folks down, shooting folks, and doing different things like that, there's only so long that you can speak death out there into the universe before death comes to claim you. And I'm not saying that, I by no means am I saying that he deserved what he got. But at the end of the day, I'm not surprised when you live that way. When you
Right.
live that way, I cannot be surprised that death came to claim you when you're talking about those things. And then there's all of these unsolved murders that they're now trying to say that he may or may or have, that he may have had a hand in. You know, he may have really been like that. According to what law enforcement is saying and the prosecutors are saying, he may have really been like that. And I mean, like, for me, like I said, as a provider and as a man, to sit here and watch some of these stories where this person is gone now, and then we turn it into a song where we're dissing the person that got killed.
Right.
We're dissing the person that got killed, like Lil JoJo. We're dissing a kid that wasn't even old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes,
Right.
that got killed over a rap song. Tuka, like like the amount of disrespect that these individuals have received. Even like Pop Smoke, where you know his mom had to listen to interview after interview after interview after interview
Right.
of the young man that
Young man
allegedly,
killed him.
you know,
Yeah.
took her son's life is doing. Like, that's wild that we just have gotten to the point in society where we have normalized just foolishness. It
Yeah.
just doesn't
Moral
make any
depravity.
sense.
It's moral depravity, is what they
It's
call
just backwards. It's backwards. And I
it.
mean,
Right.
the thing about it though is, like, you know, as I said before, we've normalized the wrong standards.
Right.
And
Now,
you and I have been talking about that. And, like I've always said, what we tolerate becomes our standard. And
right.
we've started to tolerate maladaptive, unhealthy behaviors. We've excused unhealthy patterns, turning them into habits, especially in today's society. And over time, the bar for what's acceptable and what's normal and what's right starts to get lower and lower
And lower.
and lower and lower. Now it's in the dirt. Pretty soon it's going to be straight in the trash can, because, as I said before, we're more upset at Trapler Ross for investigating the 19 bodies that NBA YoungBoy allegedly has versus NBA YoungBoy for even saying that.
Right.
Like,
Right.
my
And
mo- my
that's what I'm
my
saying. Why are you
mother
saying
my mother would have slapped the back off my head if I'm out here making songs about my hand in allegedly killing somebody. She'd have been and slapped me in the next week.
and right, so we don't value our freedom at that point, right? When I'm saying stuff like that. So and
Yeah.
I understand entertainment, there's such a fine line between entertainment, right, and fantasy sometimes, right? And so people say, oh well, they're just talking, right? Or they're well, we've started to see some of this stuff is not just talk, right?
It's
You
not.
get what I'm saying? And like I said, in the normal aspect of things, when you talk about movies and other things, people they dramatize certain things, right? And you say, oh well, there's a fine line between reality and fantasy, right? Well, no, this isn't fantasy when we're catching bodies and they're actually tying them back to you through a rap song, right? So this is a lot different than what we're used to, right? But if this is our type of entertainment, that means we've regressed as a culture, as a people, right? Like this brings us back to the Roman pantheon and all the times where they make slaves fight each other, or you get what I'm saying? Like the
Hmm.
brutality of that, right? We're going back to that entertainment. We want to see people kill each other. Like,
Yep.
so I'm confused on what we're doing here as a society. And I know people are clowning the young man, like I said, 21 Savage for stepping up and saying that. But eventually somebody's going to have to, because we know what sells. Me and RJ were talking about it before. I think it was Jay-Z who had the quote, right? In the moment of clarity, right? He said, I want to rhyme like common sense, but I did 5 mil. I ain't been rhyming like common sense, right? So, we start thinking about what money can do to people, right? It's like, well, I'm going to continue this pattern. I'm not going to stop it. Why? Because I'm getting paid doing it. And so a lot of the younger people are like, well, I want to get paid too. So I'm going to talk about some of the stuff we do on the streets, right? But for real, the ones who really live it, right, and you're talking about it, well, then that's when you get RICO cases. That's when you get murder cases. When you get tied into these bodies that people say they allegedly did, they probably did it, right? And so if this is my mind, excuse me, if this is my mindset and this is what I do on my everyday, if this is how I'm living, right, and I want to write how I live, right, which I get it, you being real, right? We call that being real in our society, right? But if I'm doing stuff like that, there's a mental issue behind it. And as providers, I always want to talk about that aspect. What's going on mentally with you if you have to promote how many people you've killed, right? There's something wrong with you. I don't care what you
Or
smoking. I don't know how much you smoking.
how many people you've killed, how many people you slept with,
Right.
just even I mean even like where like you and I had talked about offline about the interview that the young lady did on Soft White Underbelly and then
Yeah.
also on the No
Yeah.
Jumper
With the little.
podcast where
Yeah.
she's a teenager and she's prostituting herself. Where when you listen to her talk, she doesn't see anything wrong with it.
Right.
She doesn't
There's
see
no
anything wrong
morality
with it
behind
at
it.
all.
Right.
She
Nothing.
doesn't see it. She doesn't see it as abnormal. And then even like when her mom is sitting next to her during the No Jumper interview.
Right.
And so her mom is like, "Well, I don't condone her doing it, but you know, I want her to be the best at whatever it is she does." And I was just taken aback, like,
That's prostitute. That's what I
in
took it
what
as.
in what bizarro universe are we living in where your child is out here living on the streets and she's out here selling herself to survive? Like we have failed, you know, like badly as a parent, you know, where your child is feeling the need to be out here on the streets. That's number one. That's number one. We got to unpack that. Why is your child on the streets? Number
Right.
two,
Right.
you know she's selling herself, and what are you doing to stop it?
Right.
But instead, what's more important to you is your child being the best at everything that she does rather than saving your child from herself. Because as Khalil's alluded to, being under a certain age, your frontal lobe is not fully developed. So you do not possess the understanding of the decisions that you are making in this moment.
Right.
And so this is where we as the adults have to be adults in the situation. We can't be people's friends, especially when we see people going down a path of destruction, calamity, chaos, and catastrophe. We have to be the adults in the situation and guide them. And that's where for a lot of us we struggle, because for a lot of us we try to be their friend instead of being the adult. And so my thing is like with 21 Savage, you know, my thing is I applaud him for growth, but growth requires ownership.
Right.
You know, we can't be out here, you know, we gonna say F the streets and the streets is dead, but then we're offering excuses and passes when people continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. Because we got to be accountable. We have to be accountable. You know, we have to stop making excuses because, you know, excuses protect comfort, whereas accountability creates change. And as
Yeah.
Khalil talked about earlier, we're looking for change. We're looking for growth. We're looking for elevation, you know. And so for me, I'm holding him responsible. Responsibility is empowering. It's not punitive. It's not supposed to be punishment. But you are a person that has lived a street life.
Yeah.
Going by the name of 21 Savage, you got this tattoo in the middle of your forehead because you've done
Hey,
street
they was
stuff.
trying to deport him back then. Was
So
that 2021? They were trying to deport him.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were trying to
2021.
deport him,
And they
you
were
know,
talking
but you
about
know,
his
he
music.
got everything in.
Look, they were talking about
Yep,
his
they
music.
were trying to use his music. They were trying to use his music as a reason why, because they were saying he's
Right.
violent, he's this, and he's that. And so my thing is like, as a person that, you know, because it's very tough being the first to do anything. First one up, the
Right.
first person to step out there, especially when, you know, what you're saying may not be a popular opinion. So it's very hard to be, you know, to be the first one up. And so it sometimes comes, you know, it sometimes can be a little scary to be the first one that steps out there and say that,
Right.
you know, I'm stepping out here by myself. And your homeboys may not support you, your colleagues, your peers may not support you. Now some of them did support him. Pooh Shiesty, YFN Lucci, Young Thug, they support him. G Herbo, they supported him. So they're
Hmm.
saying the same thing, but we gon' only time will tell though. Only
Right.
time will tell. We gon' We're going to start rapping more consciously. We're going to start making conscious decisions. We're going to stop promoting foolishness. We're going to stop promoting the streets. We're going to stop promoting what comes along with the streets. And we going to see. We gonna see. We gonna see if what we're, because I mean, from his most current album, What Happened to the Streets. I mean, yeah, the overall tone is somewhat different,
Different.
but
Just a
it's
little.
still classic 20. It's still classic 21 Savage.
Right.
Still classic 21 Savage.
And this is the thing, right? I know the entertainment industry, right, is not going to want him to stop what's made him millions so far, right? And money has pull. I don't care what anybody says. That's why I talked about the Jay-Z quote earlier, right? Money will change people's minds, right? And it has an ability, right? If it's used in the right way, right? Money can actually help change some things, right? Money can be used for good. We have seen it been used for good, right? That platform that he has is good to speak out for it. But if you're a contradiction, right? Like people used to make fun of Tupac, right? First you're doing Brenda's Got a Baby. Even Tupac said it. And now you're trying to ride on your enemies, right? But it doesn't make sense, right? If you're going to talk about something like, hey, let's stop the violence, right? Then I need to see it in your music. I need to see you live it. And so when you're talking about holding people to that level of accountability, well, if you ain't getting no money, all right, all that stuff flies out the window. So people have to
Mm-hmm.
support. So we're actually talking to the culture, the society. We have to support him if he does change his rap style, right? And so I can't really believe it until I see it. And I hate to be one of those people, right? I'm a doubting Thomas when it comes to this because, my faith is in God, right? I don't need to see what God does because I've already seen him work, right? But when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to man, right, I ain't going to believe it until I see it. And so I'm sorry if I'm skeptical, right? And I'm not to the extreme like Boosie was, right? But I just don't believe people will change their style because they want to get money. And if
Absolutely.
money's the motive, well, I'm not going to stop getting money.
I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and that's where, as I said before at the top of the episode, we're prioritizing the wrong things. We
Right.
prioritize the money, we prioritize the notoriety, we prioritize the fame. We prioritize the women, the cars, the jewelry, the homes, instead of prioritizing being people of integrity, people of values, people of true intention, people of purpose.
Right.
Because I wholeheartedly believe, as also as a fellow believer, I wholeheartedly believe God has created each one of us to do a thing, a specific task. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
21 Savage, like, the streets may have helped you become who you are, but the streets don't own you.
Right.
The streets don't have to control you. So you can change anytime you want to, if you want to change. And that's where, for me, as I said before, only time will tell. Alignment, a change in alignment is a daily practice. You have to
Right.
prioritize the behaviors that you want to see over and over and over and over and over again. You cannot prioritize the right behaviors just one time. It's not a one-time decision. This
Be
is an
very
everyday
consistent.
decision, because the temptation to, slide back to what worked for you before, because as we've talked about on here before, people do what's worked for them in the past because it's always worked for me, so I'm gonna keep doing why.
Yep.
I'm not gonna fix what ain't broke.
Exactly.
But as you alluded to, small, consistent actions reinforce healthy beliefs. So even for us, even when he doesn't see it, we as his fan base, we as his colleagues, as his peers, need to endorse him and continue
Mm-hmm.
to pour into him to keep the dream going.
Right.
Because there's gonna come that time, that juxtaposition where you're like, God dang, I'm used to selling 1 million records. Now I only sold 10. Now I only
Right.
sold 5. Now I'm it. My, instead of my stuff going platinum, it's going triple cardboard.
Right.
And so the temptation to revert back to what you were doing before, of making street music, making street music, and talking about doing certain things, and having this and having that and doing this and doing that, the temptation's going to be there because that's what's worked for you before. That's the winning formula. But
Right.
at the end of the day, does it help society move forward? It doesn't.
Well, rappers are dependent on consumers, right?
Yeah.
And so, like I said, if, in a society, if this is what we're consuming, right, and we don't change, right, how's he going to change? right? Because he can come out like you said with an
Absolutely.
album and they go double cardboard because we ain't supporting it. Oh man, I don't know what he's rapping about. He talking about changing your life, man. I ain't trying to change my life right now. I'm in these streets. This is what I want to do, right? So it's not fitting, right? The narrative that he was spinning before, right? It's like, hey, I'm gonna live and die in these streets. So people get accustomed to that, and if that's how they're living, or if that's how they think they're supposed to be living, right? But the funniest thing is, and RJ knows this because we firsthand worked in a program where we would get inmates after they're released, right? Especially inmates who were in the mental health prisons, right? And when you talk to them, they're all so remorseful about the time they lost when they're locked in prison, especially when it comes to things that they did that were in their control. They could have made better decisions, right? And you hear this from people, it hits you because it's like they know they made a mistake, but then you hear these kids rapping about some of the same thing these prisoners did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who got released, and you like, there's no remorse in what I'm hearing from these kids, right? But the
Mm-mm.
people who were in there that did 5, 10 years consistently, and they're in and out of prison, right? For most of their 20s and 30s. When you meet these people when they in their 40s or 50s or 60s, they're remorseful. They're sorry for wasting their lives, right? And spending that time with them. I don't care if they had a mental illness or whatever, because some of them wasn't mentally ill before they got into prison. Right? They might have thought they was, but they weren't, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mental illness came after being in prison for all those amount of years. And talking to these people, they were like, "Man, I've wasted my life." You know, one
Yep.
stands out in particular, and I know RJ knows. Me and him would have long conversation because he's such a tall brother. The gentleman's like 6'7", right? But we'd have some good conversations, and he'd be so remorseful that he didn't spend time with his sons. He's so remorseful he didn't spend time with his family and other people, his brothers, and different stuff like that. Because people pass away when you in there,
Yep.
right? And then you get out, you don't have any life skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the story that people aren't telling in the music, right? You know,
Well,
especially, I have friends who've done time. And when they get out, I'm like, bro, you still living 10 years ago. We doing something different. What you doing? Why are you still talking about drugs? Why are you still talking about this rapper from back in the day? We on something else. What are you doing? They're stuck in a time loop.
well, you see that now with Dirk, right? Where Dirk, Big Dirk, his Little Dirk, Big Dirk's father. I mean, Little
Right, right.
Dirk's father, Big Dirk. He spent
Yeah,
a large chunk of his life in prison. He gets out. Little Dirk is now potentially looking at doing the same thing to his children. Like it gets to the point to where we create, as we've talked about on here before, generational curses,
right.
where we create generational curses of death, destruction, calamity, underperforming, poverty, and then because again we don't weigh short-term wins versus long-term costs.
Of course.
There's a cost to everything that we do. Chasing
Right.
immediate relief can cost you future stability. And that's what I tell my clients all the time. We gotta stop. Let's stop. Because what you were doing before wasn't working, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and
Same thing.
over again, expecting a different outcome. So we have to stop what we're doing. We have to stop chasing the quick thing, and let's look at the long term thing that's going to set you up for future stability. But also, we also have to unpack and have to unprocess and unlearn maladaptive behaviors that have always steered us down the wrong path. For a lot of us, we will keep doing the same thing because it's easy for us. The wrong behaviors often work briefly, which makes them harder to abandon later on down the line.
Right.
And that's where, like, as providers, that's where, like, we really get into it. Like, how did we end up here? And I start asking questions. How did that work out for you?
Right.
You got mad. You socked your husband in the eye. Or you socked your boss in the face. How did that work out for you? You went to jail.
Mhm.
Now you got a charge. Now you done
Right.
lost your job. Now you
You on
kicked out the
parole or
house.
probation.
Now
Right.
you having to take these classes. Like, so what did we learn from that?
Right.
And that's where we have to ask those questions as providers to dig into those things, because it's a difference for me to say that something isn't working. It's another thing for you to recognize that it's not working. And so, once a person realizes for themselves that what they're doing isn't working, they're more likely to make the change and do
Exactly.
and put in the work. And
Well,
that's
that's what
where
you're seeing right now. That's what you're seeing right now. I
Mhm.
think there's a whole, they may not all be speaking out, but there's probably a host of rap artists who are thinking exactly what RJ just said, right? This ain't working. There's
Mhm.
something wrong here. This formula isn't working. Yeah, we're selling records, but we're dying. We're not even getting to enjoy our lifestyle.
Well, I mean, so the problem, the juxtaposition with that is, for a lot of, our favorite artists, they're able to ignore the long-term consequences until they're
Right.
unavoidable. Once they become
Hmm.
unavoidable, then it's like, holy crap, how did I end up here? And it's just like, then the prosecutor walks in there and they're able to walk out your entire discography and go to song after song after song after song. This is where you said this. This is where you said that. This is where you said this. And then they got you because you're out here saying these things in your songs. You're out here promoting certain things. And so that's where they're able to tie in the RICO acts
Yep.
into regular crimes because of the promotion. The
Yes.
promotion and the criminal enterprise, because it's not just one person, it's multiple people. And then because you're using your music to promote these things, you're using your music to intimidate other people, you're using your music to say these things, they're tying it into, the furtherance of the criminal organization. And
Right.
so that's where, as I said before, we can't be shocked that we find ourselves at this point. We can't be shocked.
Well,
Anybody
look.
who's shocked, anybody who's confused, you know,
Right.
we might need to schedule you for a session.
Right, because you're probably slow, but on the other hand, right, these people are selling millions of dollars of records, right, in
Mhm.
records, right, and then you even have the people who don't sell a lot of records, right, getting caught up. So what does that tell you, right? And they're not getting half as much as promotion as the people who were selling $1 million of record like Young Thug and them, right? They're not even getting half that amount of promotion. And if the judicial system is after those people who ain't even selling records like that, man, hey, look, I don't know. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but a light bulb would pop on in my head like them cartoons, and I might be like, oh, wait, I'm gonna have to change what I'm saying because I already dropped some stuff in my albums that was true, right? If you're already dropping stuff in your albums that you know you did and it's the truth, what makes you think they can't find you out, right? So it's just some of the thought process that scares me with people. And it's like, okay, so you're living this for real because I know only gangsters I know are dead or in prison, right? I
Mhm.
don't know too many that get to walk free like that for too long. They might get to walk free, but not for too long. So it's at this point, it's very confusing um, because it seems like, hey, you want to die, right? Euthanasia, right? Like, hey, this is I'm destined to do this, right? I'm
Well,
gonna
not
just go
even
ahead.
that you want to die, but you want to go to jail. Like,
Right,
and that's where it's no different than like when people play in traffic. You play in traffic long enough, eventually you're gonna get hit by a car.
right, right,
If you're running around, with a metal rod in your hand during a lightning storm, eventually you're gonna get struck by lightning. It's called the law of averages. You do something enough, eventually something's gonna happen.
some, right,
And so when you have these rappers who are saying these things, promoting certain things, there's only so long that law enforcement is going to allow you to be saying these things and doing these things before they come looking for you. And as I
yes,
said, what has brought upon this genesis of getting away from the streets is the fact that your favorite rapper is getting caught up in a RICO. Everybody and they mama, Oprah, is out here giving away RICOs like she was giving away cars and houses. So everybody and their mama's catching a RICO and they're using your lyrics to jam you up. And then
right,
what was happening is you're seeing that people that talked about being super street and super solid really ain't built like that. They telling as soon as they get into the
soon
interrogation
as
room,
they
they
get in
telling.
there, as soon as they
Soon,
get in there, like
soon as
a
they get in there,
coconut,
they
a
telling.
coconut cigarette, coconut cigarette, man.
Or an Italian beef and a Pepsi.
Right? You see him do it on 48 Hours all the time. The one in
Yep,
Atlanta, they tripped me out, man.
yep.
But
Like,
one of my favorite quotes from Narcotics Anonymous, man, and shout out to the rooms because they helped save my life. When I was young, I remember going to a meeting and the guy said, "If the drugs don't kill you, the lifestyle will." And I'm like, damn, that's rough, right? But it was the truth, right? If you don't overdose, if you don't die chasing these drugs, right? He said the lifestyle will, right? The robbing, the stealing, the killing, right? Those things will kill you because somebody's going, they're not going to let you live like that for long, right? And it seems like that's almost synonymous with what we're doing in the rap game right now, right? Like it's scary. So these people don't have longevity like they used to. You got people rapping like Jay-Z for 30 years, right? 40 years. Not anymore. These kids are going quick.
yeah, they get cold. They get, I mean, like Arctic cold real quick. Because there's
Quick.
different waves. I mean, you have some guys that have been going strong for 10 plus years now. Because you look at rappers like Drake, you look at rappers like uh, Lil Uzi, Kodak,
Hmm.
Yachty, 21 Savage. I mean, because they've been going strong for a good 10 plus years now. But
Right.
because I remember
But
them
Drake,
being on the
longer than
double
that.
XL. Yeah, because I mean, I've been out of
Hmm.
high school going on almost 20 years now, and he was out then. I think no, he
Yeah.
no. When I got to college, he was out.
2005, 2006, Drake was already
Yeah,
singing on some of them songs.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, but I
Almost
remember
10 years.
21 Savage, Lil Uzi, Yachty, Kodak, Denzel, um, being on the double XL 2016 cipher. That's one
Hmm.
of my favorite
Hmm.
ciphers of all times is theirs
Right.
because they was just they weren't really taking it too serious. Kodak most
Most
definitely was not
definitely
because
was not.
his opening line was, "Who picked this little sorry ass beat?" That was his opening line. But
That was silly.
like if you got time, you need to go watch it because it's hilarious. But they were
Right.
just vibing. They were like each one of them's up there dropping a verse and they're feeding into each other, hyping each other up from the background. And
Hmm.
so to see where they are now, I mean, I will say, like I said, there's definite growth. But my thing is, as I said, going back to what we started the episode with, like, why did it take so long? Like, why did it take so long to have this type of conversation? Because again, just imagine how many lives that you could have saved by saying this years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. Because again, for a lot of kids, we grow up listening to our favorite rapper
Right.
and attempting to emulate what we're hearing, attempting to emulate the image. Like, I remember being in high school and getting in trouble for wearing Jeezy the Snowman t-shirts because
Right.
Jeezy was my favorite. He's still my favorite rapper.
Right.
He's still my favorite rapper. And so I remember being in high school getting the Southern Smoke mixtapes. Me and my homeboy used to we go to the mall every Friday to get a new Southern Smoke mixtape and would just be riding around listening to the mixtape every Friday. And so we would get the mixtape and the man would give us a t-shirt
Now
too.
you dating
This is
yourself
before
because yeah,
No,
you
I'm
got to get
serious. This is
mixed
before
CDs,
this is
mixed
before
CDs.
this is before Jeezy really took off and Gucci Mane took off. This is when they had that
Hmm.
song So Icy, when they did
Yeah,
that song So
they
Icy
did a song
together.
together. Yeah.
And so I used to like really, really bump Jeezy songs. Like to the point to where like him, Paul Wall, Lil Wayne, like just listen to music all the time. And
Hmm.
so, like I said, you grow up listening to your favorite musician, your favorite artist, and so you start trying to emulate their style, emulate different things, not realizing what comes along with emulating that, not
Yeah.
realizing what comes along with that lifestyle, not realizing that not everybody makes it out of that.
Right.
Like the Drake lyric from what song was that? Stay Scheming, where he said, "Not
Mm.
everybody dies, but not everybody lives," and that's
Right.
true. Not everybody makes it out at the end of the story. Not everybody survives to the end of the story. Some people they don't die, so they end up in prison, or they do die. And we talk about that. Rest in peace, this person. Rest in peace, that person. Rest in peace, this person. And I mean, the
Right.
thing about it though is like there were so many conversations that we could have had to possibly prevent that person from losing their life that we didn't have, that we should have had, that we
Look,
could
there's
have
whole
had.
interludes to albums where the RIP list is longer than the song.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
Like this, it's crazy, right? That's the lifestyle right now. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So, uh, I do want to touch on the aspect that I think a lot of people are forgetting, right? As providers, I always want to let people know, right? Mentally, right? If you're not doing well, it comes out in your behaviors, right? And I
Absolutely.
know I don't want to ignore this, but the stress, all right, of the entertainment industry, doing shows, right, traveling, right, trying to keep up that same image that you're portraying, right? And we've always talked about cognitive dissonance, right? Because you're doing some things that you don't even want to do, right? Because there's probably some times where they just want to kick back and hang out with their kids, hang out with their families, right? And you can't do that because you're constantly on the go. You constantly have to do this. You got to, like I said, you have to keep up this image. That's stressful on any human being, right? In the mental health, the brain is fragile, right? It remembers
Hmm.
patterns, and so when you get thrown off this pattern and you start changing it, right, and you're doing some things that aren't what it's used to doing, right, it creates a lot of mental stress, right, and that inflexibility, all right, comes with a lot of behaviors, right, because we're really doing something we don't want to, so then you start seeing the behaviors, right, so we're smoking more marijuana, or we're using more harder drugs, right, so
Yeah.
we can relax. We can't sleep. We're stressed out, right? Trying to meet these deadlines and demands. Well, once the behaviors start to change, and we've seen it in the entertainment industry, from everybody from Britney Spears to Lady Gaga, right? All these different people, we've seen these mental breakdowns, right? And so it's not something that I think we equate with the rap industry, but I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is a result of a mental breakdown as a provider. That's what I'm saying. Because I'm like, why are you even talking about that, right? And why are you behaving like this? What are you doing out there doing that, right? Stress. And I believe that's what you get in a lot of these people. You're not seeing someone who's
Abs-
mentally well or mentally stable
or emotionally stable. I mean,
or
like, and
emotionally
you
stable.
and I've had
Right.
this conversation. You and I have had this conversation before. Where we've talked about like, like Whitney Houston. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I went and saw the Whitney Houston movie, the biopic,
Right.
for them to have that much detail about how she was, you know, securing her drugs, that
Right.
means that someone was aware of what she was doing. And if someone was
Yep.
aware of what she was doing, why did we not stop it?
Why did they not stop? Right. Where was the
Why did we
intervention?
not stop it? Where was the interventions? And that's where for all of us, who, like, and this is where, as I said, we prioritize the wrong thing because you can recognize, like, when as a provider, I'm sitting here and I can tell when Kanye is unwell. I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you when, like, in listening to his music, being a hardcore Kanye fan from the very beginning, I can tell you where Kanye started to become unwell. I can literally tell you the album, and even like you can
Mm-hmm.
hear it in some of the songs where he started to become unwell.
Right.
And we watch people start to spiral, and then we don't try to save them before they spiral out of control,
Yep.
either through substances, because what happens is, as Khalil alluded to, people start to unravel, and they start to rely on negative and unhealthy coping skills. And so rather that is drugs, alcohol, sex, staying up all night, pouring into other unhealthy habits, but we recognize that this person is unwell, but then we don't move to intercede and step in and try to help them.
Right.
When we first start to see the signs that our people are unwell, we got to stay tapped in with each other. And this is where, as I said before, especially in today's society, we don't prioritize the right things. We prioritize the wrong things. Instead of a fellowship, community, um, looking out for your neighbor, everybody's concerned about them and theirs. I'm not
Yeah.
concerned about you because you.
Individualistic. Yeah,
Yep,
individualistic. Yeah.
we stepped away from what has allowed us as a species to be great, which is community. We can
Right.
take down a woolly mammoth because there's enough of us.
Right.
We can do great things because there's enough of us. You can do far more. And I use this analogy of a fist and a finger all the time. I can do far more damage to somebody with a closed fist than I ever could with one finger.
Hmm.
And so, because when you think of a closed fist, is all five of your fingers together and it's going into someone's face. You doing this at somebody does no damage, but
Right.
doing this at somebody is going to do some work on them. And that's where, as I said before, we have to start prioritizing the right things: community, growth, elevation of our society over the quick and loose gains, because the quick and loose gains are always going to be fleeting. You're always going to be chasing them. You're always going to be chasing them, and they're never consistent and they're never stable. So we're going to end the conversation there. This is Try Not to Overthink It, signing out. I'm RJ.
And I'm Khalil.
If you like what you heard, you like what you saw, we ask that you please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification button. Every little bit helps. Comment down below. Again,
Right.
we're trying to get these messages out here. We're trying to grow. We're trying to elevate. We're trying to push positivity, especially turning the corner into 2026. If you would like to listen to us instead of watch us, I don't know why you would, because we're some very good looking people. As a matter of fact, do both. Listen to us and watch us at the same
Right.
time. Do both. But
Tell
if
a
you would,
friend.
tell a
Tell a friend.
friend, tell a friend, tell your mama, tell your girlfriend,
Mama's
tell your
mama.
boyfriend, the dog, the cat, the chicken, tell everybody. Everybody you can tell them about this podcast. But if you would like to listen to us instead of watch us, we can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Audible, pretty much anywhere you can get your audio files. We can be located. If you'd like to support us even more, we can be located on both TikTok and Instagram. The links will be down below, where we promote condensed versions of the episode, as well as mindfulness minutes, as I like to call free pieces of chicken, nuggets of wisdom that Khalil and I curate every day, to allow each one of us to grow and to be better 1 minute at a time every single day. But this is Try Not to Overthink It, signing out, and we will catch you guys next time. Peace.